Welcome to Jonah Group Bible Study, Part 3 of 6. And I'm very excited to take you into the next chapter. And along the way, as we learn more about Jonah, we're going to learn how to use Logos Bible software to dig deeper into this rich, but very short book of the Bible. So let's go to the personal book and let's begin. Again, the purpose of this training is to combine not only how to use Logos, but get more practical help in studying a book, in this case, the book of Jonah. Now, the first step in any process, in the Bible study process, inductive process, even the sermon process, is the observation stage. Now, we normally would spend time in prayer first, asking God to illuminate us, to illuminate our minds so that we can capture and understand what the author intended to say. We're not interested in what we think it says. We're interested in what God has to say. And it's that meaning in the original context that we are striving for. And in the case of Jonah, this is especially important because if we're not careful, we can insert our own bias, our own in some of our cases, for those who grew up in the church, we could be introducing stories from the past and people's comments and create a whole nother world of Jonah that doesn't exist. So if you've downloaded the latest Jonah palette, there's some new symbols in there. So let me go ahead and open up mine. So I'm going to go to Tools, and then I'm going to choose Highlighting. So Tools, Highlighting. And we're going to go to the Jonah section. So let me find that in my list. And here we go. And you'll see that we've got some new symbols added. We've added prayer. We've added death and a few others. And we're going to use those to mark up the text. And that's going to be very important. There's the water theme as well that's been added too. Okay. Now, once you get those palettes, I want to point some things out that I think will be very useful. We're coming to Jonah chapter 2. So let's go ahead and open up that. So I'm going to go to my Bible. I'm going to click on the Bible icon, or the book icon, and we can go to the library and type in our favorite translation. That's one way to get to the Bible. Another way is just go right to that command box, type in Jonah 2. In fact, you can even abbreviate that JON space 2, and you'll notice the menu will appear saying go to Jonah 2. So let's go ahead and click that. Now, I want to make one important point. Most of your Bibles will end chapter 1 on verse 17. But if you go to the Hebrew, the beginning of chapter 2 is verse 17, and it makes total sense. Let me turn on my biblical text only. So what I did is I clicked on these three circles, and I'm now checking the box Bible text only. The reason I did that is so we could see more of the text. And you can see the section titles have gone away. Now, the reason many people, many scholars believe that 17 is really the beginning of chapter 2 is because of the way the text flows. In other words, it has a structure to it. And if you look at the first verse, 17, and the Lord appointed a great fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah was in the stomach of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. If we go all the way to the end of chapter 2, which is verse 10, we're back on the fish again. Then the Lord commanded the fish, and it vomited Jonah up on the dry land. So do you see the symmetry that we have there? We have the Lord commanding the great fish to swallow Jonah, and then we have the Lord commanding the fish to vomit Jonah out, to spit him out. And that's why I believe Jonah 17 really is the beginning of chapter 2. Now, I'm going to open up a Hebrew Bible, and I'm going to show you a neat little trick that's pretty handy. So we're going to click on the library icon, the book icon or Bible icon, and we're going to type in BHS, and that's abbreviation for the Biblia Hebraica Stuttgartensia. That's a very hard word to say. And there it is, and we're just going to pick any one of these. Westminster 4.0, doesn't matter which one you have. So I'm going to click on that. Now, let's left-click on the tab, and I'm going to drag that tab. Now, you notice that you're seeing some shading there. The purpose of that shading is to let you know that when you release the mouse, that's where the book's going to go. Very handy, allowing you to kind of control where the information is on your screen. Okay. Question here from Nathan. Do you know if the BHS is the same version of the BHS Student Edition that's used in seminary? The key question for that, Nathan, is you've got to open up the printed version and look inside. Essentially, the text is the same. Where the differences are going to be in the footnotes, which you don't have in the BHS. So it's pretty much the same text. I know that I used the 4.0 when I was in seminary for all my translation work, and I do have the print edition, and I didn't find anything significant. If there is a difference, it's pretty insignificant and most likely won't affect your grade if you have a problem, if some assignment affects it. So it's pretty much the exact same thing. A lot of the differences are the way the book is tagged morphologically, which of course would not affect the book at all from a reading standpoint, just from a computer standpoint. So great question. And okay, and great. All right, now, if you look at this is very important now. So we got our Hebrew on the right and our English on the left. Don't worry that you can't read Hebrew. It's okay. So let's now link these two books together. So I'm going to click on the Bible book cover, and I'm going to choose Link Set A. And I'm going to repeat that process again to the New American Standard. So I'm going to click on the Bible book cover, also called the resource panel, and then once again I'm going to choose Link Set A. Now, very important. I'm going to go to Jonah 1:17. I'm going to put that in there, Jonah 1:17. And I want you to notice something. Look what the BHS says, Jonah 2:1. If we go to Jonah 2:1 on the left in our Bible, okay, you'll notice that the BHS is Jonah 2:2. So if you're ever going to open up a Hebrew text, it's a good rule of thumb to link it up to the English. That way, you're guaranteed that they will line up properly. So important. So it's fascinating to see how the Hebrew says, hey, we think, because look at this, the Hebrew doesn't have a Jonah 1:17. It's Jonah 2:1. Now, if, again, you don't know Hebrew, not a big deal. Watch this. I'm going to click on the three circles, and I'm going to choose this sympathetic highlighting. I'm going to check that box. Okay, sympathetic highlighting, check it. And I'm going to repeat that for my BHS. So click the three colored circles to the right of the Bible reference box. And, oh, this one doesn't have it. So let me get a different Hebrew Bible. I'm going to go back to my library. You guys probably have the WIVU, W-I-V-U. So I'm going to click on that Bible Hebrew. And I'm going to drag it over there. And I'm going to link Set It A. And now I'm going to click on the three circles, and there it is, sympathetic highlighting. Very important feature. So if you don't have the BHS, not a big deal. You can use WIVU, W-I-V-U. Now, the really neat part about this is that what I'm about to show you. So I'm going to turn off all these purple colors for the moment, and there we go. Okay. So I'm going to go back to Jonah 2:1, or let's say Jonah the fish, appointed. I'm going to select the word appointed. You'll notice right away that a word, a Hebrew word, a phrase, has been highlighted at the right. That's sympathetic highlighting at work. If I select a great fish, okay, there it is, gadol, and then gadol. Actually, did I say that right? That's it's been a while since I have to practice my Hebrew. I know that's lab. Yeah, that's right. That's gadol at the very end there, and that's dog. Yeah, that's dog. That's what it is. Dog gadol. Okay, and dag if you actually want to be technical there. So dag gadol, and it's kind of interesting. Dag may sound familiar if you know the story of the ark being stolen. It was Dagon, the god, right? The idol. And so you can see the similar word there that's part of it. Okay, so we got dag gadol, the great fish. And notice it doesn't tell us what kind of fish it is. It's just a very general term for a creature that's living in the water. Very, very important. In fact, let's just take a moment to do a quick word study on that word fish. Okay, so I'm going to right-click on gadol. That's the word large. So let me click on dag. That's what I meant to click on. And I'm going to choose the lemma, and I'm going to choose Bible Word Study. And my Bible Word Study is opened up. I'm going to click lemma. Okay. You'll notice that there it is, dag. There's fish. And I wanted to give you a chance to see this. If you've purchased the Hebrew audio pronunciation, we now have the lemma pronunciation. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that.
Dag.
Now, if we expand the definition, let's just click on the first link there. I've got DBL Hebrew. This is a very important definition. Fish, a class of animal that lives in a body of water. A general term and not particular species or even size and meaning. In other words, today we may classify a whale as a mammal, and we may classify a catfish as not a mammal because it's a fish. And so we insert our meaning of fish into this definition, but that would not be biblical. We have to go back to the original language, look at the dictionaries that have discovered what the meaning meant in their time. And here we discover that fish is just a general term to describe that which lives in the water. Very, very important. So, yes, it can be a whale. It may be some other large creature, the Leviathan. We don't know, other than it was large enough to swallow Jonah and keep him alive for 3 days and 3 nights. Okay, so I wanted to digress there for a minute because it's a very powerful feature. You need to be aware of this linking with the Hebrew so that your verses are aligned. Okay, so let's go back here and back to our point now. We're entering poetry, and if you look at Jonah, there is a clear, visible structure, especially if you've got the New American Standard. If you were to do this with a King James Version, let's say, all right, I'm going to do the authorized version here. So let me go back here and put in authorized. You'll notice that the text, let me turn off my Bible text only, is just a paragraph. You wouldn't know that this is structured like a poem because it's all flowing in text. That's why I like the New American Standard for this very reason. This is a visible way for me to know, hey, I'm entering into poetry. And as soon as I see that, I've got to be very careful in how I observe the text, because in poetry, there are parallels and metaphors and imagery and word pictures. And if I'm not sensitive to that, I'm going to miss some great opportunities for observation. So let's go ahead now and begin to observe some of this text. I'm going to bring my personal book over here, and I'm giving you some great tips here to help you see some themes. For example, let's take a look at the speaking, praying theme. And I've got the word pray, and I've already marked up the text to kind of get us started. But let me just erase that first one by pressing Control-Shift-K. So we start reading the text again from 17. The Lord appointed a great fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah was in the stomach of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. Then Jonah, let's select the text, click on the hands of prayer, and Jonah prayed to the Lord his God from the stomach of the fish. Now, I'm going to go ahead and open up my note file. So I'm going to click on Documents, and I know that we've got a lot of Jonah notes here, almost too many, and I'm going to just go ahead and open up one of these. Okay, and I'm just going to make a little note here down below. I'm just going to move it out of the way. I'm going to click Add Note, and we're going to talk about speaking, praying, theme. Okay, and let's make some observations through a list. Let's write down what we see. So first, with a bullet point, I'm going to just click on the bullet point. We see that Jonah prayed, and from the stomach of the fish. This is a very important phrase because what it's saying here is it's giving us a context. We're seeing him now in the fish. So this begs the question, what happened, Jonah, between the time that the men threw you overboard to the time that you got inside the fish? That's what the purpose of 2:1 is. And we're going to find out exactly what happened. And then we come to verse 2. And he said, so notice that I've highlighted it and I've got it's marked with the prayer. I called out of my distress to the Lord. So let's write down in the bullet point that he called out in stress. So called out of my distress. This is, I would say, a foxhole prayer, except he's not in a foxhole. He is in the ocean. So this is a drowning man's prayer. Okay, so he called out of my distress. And look what happened here. And he answered me. So we're seeing the Lord here. Now, we could take a moment and talk about the Lord. So let's put that in here. The Lord answered. Okay, Jonah. Let's go to the next one. I cried for help. Now, I don't want you to miss this. Okay, so let's first write our note. I cried for help. And where did he cry for help? From the depth of Sheol. Okay, from the depth of Sheol. And then it says, you, which again is the Lord heard my voice. Now, let's pause here and point something out. Because we're in poetry, we always have to ask the question, is there or are there ideas in parallel? And there is. Look at this. I called out of my distress is parallel to I cried for help from the depth of Sheol. Notice the Lord's response. He answered me, and you heard my voice. So we can say pretty comfortably that called is equal to cried, and answered is equal to heard. That these are in parallel. So we could, instead of saying equal, we could put two parallel lines, and that signifies that these are in parallel, and that's a better way to do it. Now, what's also interesting is this, I cried for help from the depth of Sheol, from my distress, okay? It's interesting that we have this fish who's in the water, and Jonah's praying in the fish, and now he's recollecting what was going on before. Now, the depth of Sheol is a significant phrase. Without spending too much time in the word study, Sheol, for the most part, is equal to the grave, a place of the dead. It's not necessarily heaven or hell, though some contexts may intimate that, and sometimes it can be in heaven and sometimes it can be hell. But typically, Sheol simply is a general term for the place of the dead. Okay, now, the question we have to figure out is, was he dead or was he in the process of dying? Okay, and it says from the depth of Sheol. So he's heading that way to death, but it doesn't look like he has died. And how could he be dead? Because he's crying for help. Okay, dead men don't cry for help anymore because they're dead. Now, they may be in hell and they're tormenting, and like Lazarus and the rich man who begged for a dip of water on his tongue, that's a total different issue. So Jonah is in the process of dying. We don't want to miss that. Now, this is probably a good time to pause here and do a couple word studies. So let's right-click on the word called and just do a quick Bible word study. So I'm going to right-click on called, and I'm going to choose lemma, and I'm going to choose Bible word study. And if we look at the DBL Hebrew or any other dictionary that you have, we get some very interesting information. First, to summon, to call a person, to come into one's presence or give a task. Or, number 3, to proclaim, to announce, to make a public calling out of information. Well, it's definitely not 3, but look at all these definitions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There is a lot there. Too many. And so that makes our job a little more difficult. But in this case, it looks like for the most part, it's just a simple crying out. Okay? Now, to give us some help, we go back to the other word, cried. And we right-click on the word cried. There it is, lemma, Bible word study. And we look at the lemma section, and we click on that. And it's a plea for relief. Ask or request something with a focus that the asking is intense and desperate, imploring for aid in a difficult or dangerous situation. A focus on help or aid. This is really significant because it now makes it clear that Jonah is crying out for help. He's in distress. He is on his way to dying. And that's when he cries out to God. Wonderful picture there. Now, if we go to verse 3, we get some more information as he goes down and further down. Now, to take us back to the last session, there is a significant picture going on here of Jonah. So let me go back to verse 1 and see if you can remember this, okay? So God comes, I believe the pre-incarnate Christ comes to Jonah visibly and says, go to Nineveh and cry against it, for their wickedness has come up before me. All right? And that word cry is kara, the same one that is Jonah used to call out, not to cry, but I called out to the Lord. Okay, so Jonah rose up and fled to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. And so we begin to see that he is moving away from the Lord, not upward, but downward, literally geographically. And then we see this idea being further expressed. So he went down to Joppa. He found a ship which was going down to Tarshish, really geographically. He paid the fare. So down into his pockets. Then he went down into it to go with them to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. All right, so he's going down in the ship. Now the ship is going to go down because of the storm. And it says here, but Jonah had gone below. So he goes even deeper into the hold of the ship and laying down and falling asleep. He goes into a deep sleep, okay? So you can see this downward trend of Jonah. Don't miss this because it's significant. So they're trying to rescue Jonah. They can't. And eventually they throw him overboard, right? So then he's now down in the sea. And then we'll go fast forward now back to Jonah 2. And now he's gone down into the depth of Sheol. And then verse 3, for you had cast me into the deep. He's even deeper and down and low into the heart of the seas. So this picture of him going down from life, and now he's heading towards death.